For today's episode, I am pleased to introduce my guest for today. It's John Timmerman, and he's actually more a serial entrepreneur than just a founder and CEO of Good Monster. He's been building up a bunch of companies, but we're going to be learning about his current stint at Good Monster, where he is, like I mentioned, the founder and CEO. And Good Monster is a creative digital marketing agency that is focused on growth to deploy essentially growth strategies within the marketing arena. So obviously a great guest for the Platform Presents podcast, where we talk all about growth and methodologies in order to get there. So yeah, I'm just pleased to have John on the show. Welcome.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Very cool. So maybe tell us, like, what is Good Monster all about in your own words?
So we started out as a YouTube show actually about 8 years ago, and it was sort of a creative, an opportunity for me to get the creative side out of me. I had a full-time job at the time as a marketing director at a law firm. It was relatively boring work, so I needed to get that creative outlet. And that spawned into businesses asking us to create content for them. Fast forward 8 years, and we now have a global strategic marketing agency. We do have a heavy creative component to it, but we've now opened up to being more strategic partners with our clients, mainly because the landscape, the marketing landscape, as it ties to business objectives, are changing all the time. We just saw a huge, rift in that in 2020 for obvious reasons. And so we partner with our clients to find the best opportunities to generate their business objectives. 90% of the time, that's revenue.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. Super interesting. Actually, one thing that I wanted to ask you, how did the name come about? Like, it's such a cool name, and you're leveraging it very nice, even if you see, your email signature plays everywhere. So, how did it come about?
Yeah, so we had a name originally that was too like nerdy. It was too marketing nerdy. It was Dream Social Media, and dreamsocial.com was taken. So we turned the S into a Z, thinking that was all creative and fun. Turns out it was really hard for people to remember. They didn't know if it was one word or two. They always wrote it with an S, even though it was with a Z. And so we're like, if we're going to grow into a marketing company that prides ourselves on brand, this doesn't make any sense. And so my partner at the time sat down, him and I sat down and just went through different options for names, literally just writing on a napkin, or I remember over a beer. And we were just putting together, sort of adjectives and nouns and, doing that whole thing. And nothing seemed real. Like, it was just like, these all just seemed like fake names. They don't mean anything. And then we got to Monster, and my business partner said, you know what? Monster's really cool. It's got something different. All your agencies are last name, last name, last name. That's the Mad Men style, is you put your last name on it, and then, you're a marketing agency, just like a law firm. So we wanted to be different than that. And Monster was taken. There's Monster Energy drinks. There's monster.com. There's a lot of big companies that are just Monster. And so I think at the time I just took a swig of my beer and I was like, you know what? Monster's awesome, but we're not like an evil monster. We're like a good monster. And as soon as I said that, we were just like, that's the name, Good Monster. That's it.
Awesome. Really cool.
And the rest is history.
Awesome. Really cool. So who would be the typical client? Who would be the type of company that works with Good Monster today?
So the perfect company for us is a product manufacturer that most typically either has a really great retail distribution, brick and mortar, they're in stores across whatever, Brazil or US or Europe. And they rely on distribution. They rely on other people's distribution to get their products out there. What we do is we help them own that. We help them become a little bit more vertically integrated and go direct to the consumer. So we help them create their own websites, create their own brand, create their own marketing channels, funnels, leverage marketplaces like Amazon or eBay or Flipkart or Mercado Libre or whatever it is in that particular country. We help them go direct to the consumer so they can own that relationship a little bit more.
Super interesting. And, obviously, since this is a very specific target that you're working there with, I'm very curious. What would be sort of the journey that maybe a marketeer in those production manufacturing companies would actually, get to know about you guys? Like, how do they find you guys?
We typically go find them. So we have an outreach team here at Good Monster that identifies a good fit for us, and then reaches out to them. Quite often, they don't have a robust marketing team. And a lot of times their marketing team isn't a true e-commerce or consumer driven marketing team. Their goal is to help the distributors market them. And so they're a little bit more of an account manager uh, than a true marketer or marketing team. So that's where we step in. In fact, recently in 2020, actually, we launched our consulting services that focus on CMO and CRO type services. So we act as their marketing executive, or we act as their revenue executives collectively. Our executive team internally basically builds out their strategies for them. So we go find those opportunities.
Makes a lot of sense. We're working with quite a bit of manufacturers here when Pathmark as well, and the picture is just all too familiar. Makes
Yeah,
a lot of sense.
yeah, you get it.
Very, very cool. Obviously, in that journey that you're describing, outbound, what role would you attribute to Good Monster's website? Like, what does that sort of, if you think about the overall setup, what role does the website play for you?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny in the agency world. Our agency's the agency's own website often takes a back seat to client work. That's a very typical thing. And if an agency does put a lot of effort into it, it's much more of a shock and awe. It's got to be creative and visually pleasing. And when we first started out, we built our website like we would build a client's website. We built funnels and lead generation, and we focused on SEO, and that worked on a local or regional. So here in the United States, it worked around upstate New York and in different pockets. But as we're growing now, especially as we're growing out of the country, the role of our website is changing. And so the role of our website now, which in its current iteration is still has a little bit of that older, some of those older practices in them. But as we start to evolve, it will take on much more of a, this is going to sound funny to say, but much more of a dynamic business card for us, because people are not coming to our website. They're not finding us through our website. There's a lot of marketing agencies that's how they get business. But for us specifically, with our demographic, the role of our website needs to be they get there and they instantly know that we can make them an extra $20 million over the next 3 years. And so I say this because we're retooling our website to kind of convey this a little bit better. Much more social proof, much more case studies, much more, much more impressive trust building sort of visuals than it is sort of funnel hacking. But I do still think there's a very, very, very big need for that sort of funnel hacking, conversion rate optimization when it comes to other B2B, or definitely direct to consumer or B2C. I mean, we do that every day for our clients, and that's still hugely important. But just for us specifically, that's the role of our website.
Yeah, makes complete sense. I was actually about to ask, like, sort of, where do you see the strength of the current site? And
the strength of the current site, again, it goes back to sort of local and regional, because we have good SEO, right? So people are finding us in and around the East Coast, and especially in New York, and it's driving leads in that realm, but they're not necessarily a good lead for us. So we often find some partners that can help facilitate them. And so we're in that transition phase where we're trying to retool the website to be a little bit more focused for what we want over the next decade. But I would say the strength of the site are tools. So things that people, particularly marketers or even business owners, can go on and utilize. So we've tested a lot of different tools, some of them out of the box. We recently built one you can see on there now that helps them come up with their marketing budget. And that was our attempt to have manufacturers who don't know the marketing world sort of figure out how much this is going to cost.
Makes a lot of
And
sense.
to be honest with you, it worked, but it probably, based on our data, turned off more people than it turned on. So we found that in the customer journey, telling them how expensive it was going to be upfront definitely was weeding out clients that we weren't maybe a good fit for, but it didn't give us an opportunity to discuss with them and show that, hey, if you're going to spend $500,000 on marketing, it will make you $5 million. So
Gotcha.
that's one of the reasons why we're sort of retooling that now. The tool is great. We just maybe would put it in a different part of the customer journey.
Makes sense. Coming back to your services, right? So for everybody who's listening in and maybe might be working as a marketeer, very often, in single teams, 3 people teams, these teams are often out there in a manufacturing world for digital marketing. What would you say is a main competitive advantage when they start working with you guys? Like, what do they get that is difficult to get somewhere else?
So we have a unique pricing model. So a few different things. Number one, we are completely remote. We have been before 2020. And so we go and find the best. We have 3 rules: efficient, effective, and remarkable. So that basically covers our entire agency, from hiring practices to the work that we do for our clients. Those are sort of the 3 things that we measure our entire agency's value on. And so we do this because we want to go find the most cost efficient talent for our clients, the most effective talent for our clients, and the ones that have the skill set or the talent to deliver the most remarkable results. And so, because work, especially in our industry, is completely democratized based on the internet and ability to work from wherever, we have teams in Brazil, we have teams in India, we have teams in the US, and depending on the position or the client, that's how we sort of select what's the best. And so we're able to be a little bit more cost effective, or cost efficient rather. Another way that we do this is we usually deploy performance agreements. So rather than just saying we're $100 an hour and here's how much time it's going to take and here's the work that we're going to do for you, we set up either half-time or full-time people underneath that account. So it's not billing hourly, it's billing a multiple of the salary. And then we set performance goals based on, we have a system to basically measure how much revenue we can get for this particular company and where we can get it. Amazon, Shopify, or e-commerce or big commerce, SEO, influencer marketing, what's the best way to deploy it and how much revenue can we get? And we actually reduce our prices. We assign a discount that we only earn back if we hit those quarterly goals.
Nice.
And so we have a little bit of skin in the game, and it allows us to work a little bit more fluidly without being restricted by hours or restricted by budgets or that type of thing. So we have a better model than we previously had before we adopted this, and it often works out very well for both parties.
Very cool. I'm curious, if we're switching gears a little bit and learning about you. I mentioned that you built up several companies, and talking about Good Monster today. Like, what's the type of content that you consume in that sort of probably minimum amount of time that you have available to get into content? Like, where do you go and how do you pick content that you consume?
So the content that I consume is usually listen, I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't love spending tons of time on social media or media in general. I'm a big family man. I have a new son and a wife, and I'm grateful enough to live nearby, next door actually, to my parents. And so we're a big family oriented family. So that's where my passion lies. In addition to the many companies that I'm launching or own already, I don't love to consume content unless I need to, or it's going to add immediate value. So when we talk about podcasts, I'll listen to podcasts when I need to go seek something out and learn something that I don't know. Clubhouse is the new, latest and greatest app out there. So I'll go onto Clubhouse just to understand how it works and see if there's any opportunities for any of our clients or any of our businesses to utilize that. So we're going to be using Clubhouse for our conference in April. And that's going to be a branding sort of audience generating opportunity. So we're bringing in our speakers to do a room, and they're going to be bringing in people, and it's great. But to answer your question, I'll go find places which has the information that I need. It's usually podcasts if I'm driving or working out, and it's usually YouTube videos if I need to learn it right then and there, and then blog posts just as needed, based on Google searches.
Very cool. Since we're already slowly coming to an end of the interview, I want to jump into our rapid fire questions. Are you ready for those?
Let's do it.
Very cool.
Let's
What's the last book you read?
Currently reading .com Secrets, Russell Brunson.
Very good. What's the one single thing your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Increasing revenue by an extra $1 million in 2021.
Solid goal. If there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be the one thing that you want to have fixed for your company today?
Say the first part of that again.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing that you want to have fixed for your company today?
I wish I could automate happiness.
Nice. Good answer. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about your company?
Making sure my team is equal parts happy and productive.
I can see, very team focused. The very last question would be, if we would be zooming back, right? So that very first days of Good Monster, maybe probably even a little bit before you had that beer with your colleague to actually get the name up, what's the one advice that you would give yourself?
I probably would have gone and got a job at an agency so that I would have learned quicker how to do it differently.
How to do it differently?
Instead of growing and learning what other agencies are doing and trying to copy what they were doing.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Yeah, I really appreciate, John, that you took the time with us today and we're part of Pathmo Presents. I want to give you the very last word, right? If somebody would be forgetting everything that we discussed about Good Monster, what's the one thing that they should remember?
About Good Monster specifically?
Yep.
That we're a company that's looking for people that want to be happy and super productive. And in current trending times, we're on a pretty good rocket ship to the moon, and we're looking for talent to help us get there.
Very, very cool. Thanks for being part of Pathmo Presents.
Thanks, Lucas.